Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started with part 3 of Forever Young, which is living with longevity. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to hit the bell icon as well, so you can get notified every time we upload a video. Comment on this thing. Ask us some questions, because a lot of what I'm able to talk about as I go through the 1, 2, and 3 parts here, really just scratching the surface with the basic fundamentals of each of these categories. And we really need to go in deeper, which we can do in some further videos. So make sure that you subscribe so you can get notified on that. Make sure that you, if you're looking for some specific action steps, you need to ask a little bit more personal questions, feel free to look at the link below and fill out some information, and we can connect with you in order to help you out with things. But I'm excited to go through part 3. We've got some robust topics to really get going on. So let's get started. As we look at the first topic of today, which goes on to, if I can get the slide, there we go, the minimizing toxins concept, because one of the things that we begin to realize in our society is we have more chemicals that we're exposed to than has ever really been in human history. So it's something we need to be very, very aware of, especially as you start looking into the research that exists in this world now. I mean, ultimately, the principle of minimizing toxins makes sense. A poisoned body does not work well, so that's pretty straightforward. Let's get into it. One of the biggest things about cultures with longevity is we've noticed, we look at the different cultures around the world with the highest rates of centenarians, the vast majority of them are very remote. The vast majority of them do not have the industrialized areas around them. So, for example, in the past few decades, more than 100,000 new chemicals have been introduced to our bodies, our homes, and our environment. And what we're finding in these other areas is they simply have not been exposed to the same level of toxins that we have. In fact, there was one assessment that was done over 200 infants, and what they realized was that there was a tremendous amount of cognitive and psychomotor function that was likely delayed at a year when the cord and maternal blood and higher levels of mercury and the lead studies, higher levels were still trace amounts, and this was done in 2006. So the prenatal exposure to mercury and all of these cognitive, neurologic, psychomotor functions are highly influenced by these very simple heavy metals that can be in a variety of sources. There's a ton of research into many other chemicals as we start looking into that. Like, most people know that lead is not good for you, then that can be helpful. Like, for example, the amount of lead that was in paint, they're saying obviously you don't want to have lead in paint anymore, and so they've made that not available to buy anymore. And then, of course, there are other toys that a few years ago they were saying that many toys made in China had lead in their paint. And so as we become more and more aware of these things being around, more industrialized, more processed, or more modern things, items, or processes, that there's more and more exposure to a variety of things that we may not have paid attention to previously. So as we take a look at it, let's go ahead and begin to talk for just a minute about isolating the sources. Number one is just simply foods. And this is where organic foods are most nutritious, primarily due to the processing of the industrialization of things. So even just simply growing foods that don't have chemicals sprayed on them, and then growing them in areas that don't have other chemicals sprayed, and where the soil is not very depleted because of the industrialization or high volume construct of food production, then you end up with a lot more nutrients in the individual item that you're eating. And so because of all of those things, absolutely, it's going to make a massive difference in avoiding the toxic chemicals on them and getting the most nutrients in them, specifically in that particular food as well. So take a look at the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 done by the Environmental Working Group. You can go to EWG.org and take a look at those things. The second thing we need to pay attention to is water, and most municipalities will release a regular statement of water testing results, and they'll tell you what metals or what chemicals or what general toxins are left behind in the water, to what extent, and usually declaring certain amounts of chemicals to be present but passable by the EPA's standards. And so if your water is sourced from a well, you might not know literally what's in there unless you have it extensively tested yourself. So things to be aware of. Another very common one we need to pay attention to is personal care products, whether that be the things that you're putting in your hair or on your face or makeups or things like that. Ultimately, the skin is the largest organ in the human body. And so if it's not safe enough to swallow, we shouldn't be putting it on our skin. And so things like phthalates and parabens are known to disrupt the endocrine system, so the metabolism, hormones, all of that sort of stuff, yet are still added to countless products on the shelves of your grocery stores and in your cosmetic cabinets. And researchers are digging for the extent of damage that they can do between lotions and other products, increased paraben and phthalate concentration in urine of tested pregnant women. So what are the phthalates doing to the pregnancy and to the baby's future health? These are things that we just don't fully understand, but there's a tremendous amount of these things found when tested. There was a study done in 2014. And so personal care product use and urinary phthalate metabolite and paraben concentrations during pregnancy found in a fertility clinic in that particular study. And adolescent girls who only use products free of these toxins saw urine concentrations, check this out, they literally dropped by about half after 3 days. Literally within 3 days, the amount of concentrations dropped to about 50% of what they were. So literally you could make a massive change within a few days by switching the products that you're using. And again, go to ewg.org. They've got a ton of resource and reference for knowing which companies and which products have these things in them. They even have an app called Skin Deep, and you can download that on your phone and you can take a look at a lot of products from there. I also know that Young Living is an essential oil company primarily, but they have a lot of non-toxic resources as well. Feel free to ask about those things on the link as you click that underneath the video, or if you want to make comments or other things available as well. So there's a tremendous amount of resource that does exist today that literally did not exist 5-10 years ago as far as alternatives that are not filled with these chemicals. So it does exist. You can make changes, and it really does make a difference. Number 4, we take a look at household products. The same problematic ingredients in personal care products are found in household cleaners and on top of the bleach and harsh detergents and other things like that. You can find some of that information in the book Align Your Health, particularly on page 107, according to Dr. B.J. Hardick, who wrote that particular book. You can find that information there. One of the other things in number 5 is in-home air quality. So according to OSHA, it's estimated that about 50 to 100 common indoor mold types have the potential for creating health problems, and so that's literally inside our homes. And so there are some strategies and solutions available there. In particular, go to the Align Your Health book in Appendix E for some simple swaps for everyday life. That's going to be on page 185 to 187. That particular book was just recently released and has a tremendous amount of information, each one of these 5 essentials that we've talked about up to this point. So great source of information there. And feel free to ask questions. There's a ton of resources that you can plug into, but we got to get moving. Now the reality is that we're exposed to toxins all the time, and we can remove as many sources as we can, but there are some sources that we simply can't, and some of these things are difficult to get out of the body on our own. And so a detox protocol is absolutely necessary when it comes to making sure that ourselves as an adult and then our children as well begin to get and unload some of these things, because what they found is that even in fetal cord blood is that there are over 200 different chemicals that have been found inside the blood, and this is literally even before birth. So we take a look at these things. There's chemicals in everybody, it seems. And so for an adult, there's a 2-stage system that ultimately can get toxins out of the cell, and then the second stage gets it out of the body for complete elimination and not recirculation. But it helps to get those deep intracellular toxins out of the body, so much more deeply done than simply a colon cleanse or something to that effect. And then there's a protocol in particular, the Max Kids line, detox powder, which is a mild system that is specially formulated for children. And so safe to use for the kids, but to begin to unload some of these things that have built up into our system. And we're going to do an entire detox program. We're going to do that live in town here in the next month or so. And we're going to get a lot deeper into these things. So look out for that. Watch out for other resources as we unload that on the channel. Now, one of the other things we got to talk about, and this is really where one of the biggest practical things that is really one of the biggest kept secrets in our society for healthy longevity, and that's taking a look at just our modern sedentary aspect of life. And one of the reasons why sitting is so detrimental is that it increases pressure in the spine by 40%. In October 2017, the Internal Medicine Journal reported that highly sedentary lifestyle can be a risk factor for, get this, all-cause mortality. And literally what this means is that sitting takes years off of your life. And like I said, the increased pressure in the spine is exactly the mechanism of why. As they say, sitting is the new smoking. This is all about this thing within the spine. They say this is the backbone, and literally it is the backbone of our health because it houses the nerve system. And so what happens is we're in bad positions or bad ergonomics for 8 hours a day, working in seated positions or working in office jobs, and that increases pressure on the discs, which increases the pressure on the nerves. And then, our shoulders get tight, or low back gets sore. These are all signs. These are all warning signs. And one of the crazy things, if you think about it, that even with good ergonomics, if you have one bone out of alignment, that's going to increase pressure in that section exponentially. It's like imagine walking on a broken ankle. It's a bad idea to continue to use or put pressure onto that injured area. But here's the thing. The thing that we don't realize is that you can have a problem in the spine and not feel it. Now, you're going to feel a broken ankle, but you can literally have a misalignment in your neck or in your back and not even know that it's there. The interesting thing is that about only 10% of your nervous system has pain perception. The vast majority of it controls all of the functions that we just simply don't think about. So let's take a look at this whole concept of ergonomics, and recognizing that it's not just a neck or a back problem. But if you take a look at this picture here, as this guy basically looks like he's devolving into slouching and hunching over into the computer. It's like we were upright and now we're just absolutely descending into destruction. And so this is why whenever we're sitting, it increases pressure. And whenever we have our backpack on one side, it distorts things to the side. And so that's one example of bad ergonomics. But functionally, it's way more than just the bones. It's what the bones protect, which is the absolute foundation of life and health. But let's take a look at this whole posture concept, for example. There's a study done in Harvard, in one of their health publications. They said the good posture not only protects you against back pain, it also improves your overall health and appearance. Poor posture, on the other hand, promotes back pain and can affect the position and function of get this, your abdominal organs. It will inhibit breathing and oxygen intake and can even cause headaches. It may also even affect mood. So this is crazy. When you start looking at this, the number one reason for lost work hours is back pain and headaches, and that's going to be completely determined by our posture. So listen, posture matters, and this is where the beautiful aspects of chiropractic come in, because it can really help to address these fundamental structural issues that help us to have a healthy longevity from that perspective. So literally the nervous system controls, there is a power that comes from your brain down your spinal cord and runs literally electrical signals out those nerves for your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for your digestive system to break down your food, to absorb your nutrients, that there must be a message that goes back and forth. It's an inside out healing mechanism. And so here's the principle, that we need to make sure that power is free from any sort of interference in our body. And so very simple analogy, not 100% accurate, but same concept, is if that were a physical hose and you were to kink the hose, that goes to a part of your body to supply what it needs, you kink the hose, the water doesn't go through. Very simple. And so if you have something going on in an area where joints don't move or joints are out of position, then that begins to disrupt the normal functional capacity of that area, whether you feel it or not. Think about it. You can have a heart problem and not know it. In fact, you can have 90% blockage in an artery and not know it. So you can have pressure on neurology, you can have a misalignment in your spine and not know it in the same way. This is why we've got to have these things checked. And one of the things that we found is that healthy longevity, one of the aspects of posture is that every single person who makes it over 100 has these two qualities, that their spine from the front is pretty straight, is pretty square. And then from the side, they have these very important curves, these arcs of life in the neck, the mid-back, and the low back. Let's take a look at that real quick. This arc of life, if you take a look at the side view of the neck, there's that C-shaped curve there. It's like a spring. It's very strong to gravity. It's geometrically stable. If you take a look at the bridge here, take a look at that arc that it has for structural stability. So you see that curve, that arc, that right there. Now take a look at this. What happens if you flip that to the side? It literally looks like the side view of an X-ray in a healthy neck. That's actually a picture of my neck, by the way. But I've worked hard to make sure that it got to that point because it didn't always look like that. Now, one of the interesting things in 1980, Nobel Prize recipient for brain research, Dr. Roger Sperry, he demonstrated that 90% of the energy output of the brain is used in relating the physical body to gravity. So how important is this? This is crazy important. So what would happen if the bridge lost its arc? It would cave in under the stress. So guess what happens to our body is it begins to cave in under the stress, and that's literally where degeneration begins. So let's take a look a little bit further as we begin to understand what's happening in the nervous system. It begins to help us understand exactly what we need to do about it. And so this is where we can get the benefits of the design. So think about this. Even if we didn't have the natural birth that didn't injure our upper neck during the doctor's pull with forceps vacuum extraction, or even with hands, that happens so common in modern delivery now. Even if we didn't have good core strength as we were learning and growing and building, if we weren't sitting and playing video games and we had good core strength, and even if we didn't have the culture of holding squatting positions rather than sitting in a chair, even if we didn't have all of that, even with all of the injuries that most of us had as a child, or the car accidents, or those things, here's the crazy thing. Even if we didn't have the perfect ideal life in childhood and in adulthood free from injury, there is hope. And this is where I get excited about this core of health, this core of chiropractic, because when you start talking to patients, you'll start talking to them and they'll say things like, man, I came in and the doctor cured my asthma. He helped my sciatica. He adjusted me and my menstrual problems went away. And so you hear all these stories and all these different things that have nothing to do with neck pain or back pain, although those things can get better as well. Here's the crazy thing is that many people will start thinking that chiropractors are saying, man, they can cure everything from leprosy to ingrown toenails. So here, let me set the record straight. Here's what we're saying. Chiropractic is not designed to cure anything. Literally does not cure or treat any of those things. Here's what it does. Chiropractic helps remove the interference in the body's own ability to heal itself. That's it. A full expression of the body's own ability to heal by removing the interference that was simply a bone shifted or not moving. So it blocks those messages when it's shifted. That's a subluxation. If you have a subluxation in an area of your body, that area cannot heal at highest capacity. It just cannot. It's like the kinked hose. You cannot get the water supply. If a joint is not moving, you do not get the nerve supply or the input into your brain. You cannot have the postural perception that Dr. Sperry was talking about. You cannot have the normal neurologic input or functional control. which can influence every other organ that you have. You simply cannot. So if you can restore the joint motion and you can restore the alignment, then what happens is the power that the body already has to heal can get to work. And that's where the cool stuff is, because so much bigger than neck pain or back pain, it's literally power getting to the body. It's life getting to the body. And so normal is essentially healthy. All we're doing is unfolding that. And that's just awesome. It's just normal equals performance. And so here's one of the biggest differences that I found is that not all of chiropractic is the same. One of the biggest things that you want to look for, if you're looking for a chiro in your area, you want to ask about what's called corrective care. And so this corrective care mindset is, let's say you take an x-ray and you measure, you know what, you don't have that arc of life, or you have a curve to the side, or you have that twist of a particular vertebrae, that subluxation. And that may be very much the thing that's causing your headaches or pain in your neck or back, but it's causing other things. Now, let's say you take that x-ray on the front end, you do that exam, you find that problem, that you go through a process, you correct as much as possible, not just make sure that the pain goes away, but make sure the problem is corrected. Let's say you do that. Then you take a look at the films later. You actually take an x-ray later to make absolutely sure that that problem got corrected to the best of its ability. Man, if you can get a 10-degree curve down to 5 or 4 or 3, that is life to the body. And so how do we do that? There's what's called a mix, fix, and set concept, where there's 3 stages in order to correct the spine. The mix is warming everything up, getting it moving. So we have this system of tractioning, wobble cushioning, moving the spine. We've got the other strategies, whether that be massage or stretching or various aspects of mixing it. The fix is a particular specific adjustment, whether that be with hands or with instrument, whatever you need for your particular specific subluxation pattern. And then there is a specific body weight system or digital motion x-ray tested exercises that fit your particular specified pattern to create that strength or that set. That whole systematic approach for correcting and then beautifully just maintaining that aspect and health of your spine makes all the difference in the world. When you take a look at all these different studies, and one in particular, 1 year ago, this lady was taking medication for high cholesterol, acid reflux, thyroid problems, plus hormone replacement therapy and a host of others to control her allergies. And she would get anywhere from 3 to 4 sinus infections a year, sometimes more, and contract bronchitis so badly that it would lead to pneumonia and would be out of work for weeks. I'm sure that it makes sense that she also had some depression with all of this that she was struggling with, and but she made the decision. She refused to go on one more medication. She could, by 5 p.m., all she could do was sit on the sofa. Energy was in the tank, and joined her sister at one dinner with others, and she had in past experienced issues similar to her sister, and they were sharing stories of recovery through this concept of the 5 essentials for health and well-being. And then the testimony just blew her away. But she was skeptical, right? Because she'd been struggling with these things for 20 years and with all these health challenges. But she committed her lifestyle to change. She got connected with the corrective care chiropractor in Max Living, and she started taking better care of her spine, her body, changed nutrition, started on a better path through the 5 essentials, started the workouts. But most exercise normally was boring for her, but she started with the high intensity. She started doing some stuff at home, the burst or the surge training. She even took the regimen to work, making a point of doing 10-minute intervals up and down just stairs. And one of the crazy things that she noticed is that even with thyroid problems, that her energy started going through the roof. Is amazing, the best energy she'd felt in years. And before she knew it, she could keep up with her 4-year-old grandson and spend more time with her husband outdoors. And the mood and depression symptoms started going away, and hormones started getting stable. And she lost over 20 pounds, and she's no longer on the medications for the cholesterol, the acid reflux, or even for the thyroid, and she was able to discontinue the hormone replacement therapy without any issues. And just mind blown. When the doctor noticed her diminishing need for medication, she asked, what was she doing? And she said, you know what? Let me tell you about max living. And she started started to communicate her own life change. And there was one particular study, 311 chiropractic patients that were age 65 and older who had received maintenance care. This is taking care of the spine long term, not just for pain, long term. And they'd been receiving their maintenance care. They've been maintaining for about 5 years or longer versus citizens of the same age. Get this. The results were that the patients spent only 31% of the national average for healthcare. Could you imagine 70% less in healthcare expenses? That's mind-blowing. This is a game changer. And they had 50% less medical provider visits. Their health habits were radically better. They had far less cigarette consumption. 98.5% of them believed that the care that they had received was extremely valuable, and you can begin to see why. That the wellness patients actually had 60% fewer hospital admissions. They had 59% less days if they were, which means that they're healing faster than others that were in there. And they had 60% fewer outpatient surgeries, and they spent 85% less on pharmaceutical costs. This is from the Journal of Manipulative and Physiologic Therapeutics. This is a medical JMPT medical journal. And they literally found that this was wellness, maintenance, chiropractic patients that got those results. So just incredible stuff. I could go through more stories and more stories in those things, but I just want you to begin to understand that if you start looking at the idea, the concept of correction here, take a look at this one, and you take a look at this change here. This is a before and after. This actually happened in our office, and this is a corrective plan. So if you take a look at the neck, that's straight, and then you can see that it actually changed. This is the difference between popping the pain versus correcting subluxation. So actually correcting these things. Now, let's take a look at some of these warning signs. Some of you may already have some of these warning signs that you have a problem in the spine of the nerve system, which can interfere with your healthy longevity capacity. And these are so common. When you take a look at headaches, menstrual problems, high blood pressure, depression, insomnia, sciatica or low back pain, neck pain, dizziness, fatigue, acid reflux, other numbness, tingling, asthma. When you start looking at these things, that these are so common in our society that many people unfortunately believe that they are normal. And let me just tell you that they are absolutely not normal. If you have any of these warning signs, you just need to get the nerve system checked. I need to have that thing looked at. If you're not in our area, if you're not in the Bloomington-Normal area of Central Illinois, then give us a call anyway, or fill out that link. And what we're going to do is we'll find a doc in your area who can help you with these things. But the reality is that your future is determined by your actions now. If you like what you're hearing here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that bell icon so you can see when we're posting more stuff. I know that this is brief, and I know that there is so much more that we can go into depth here, but your posture matters, that arc of life matters, avoiding toxins matters, getting moving and watching your nutrition matters, and it all begins with your mind. It all matters. Get started here. Ask us questions. Plug in. Keep looking forward to all the different things that we're doing. Love you guys. Have a blessed day.